Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Insurance Town. I'm the Mayor, Heath Sheeran, and the host of this podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm pumped. You're hanging out with me today because I've got my good friend Paul Neuberger coming in to hang out with us, and I'm excited about it. He's such a great dude, and he's got TV shows, and he's got podcasts and YouTube channels and all kinds of stuff. And he talks to us today about cold calling and about sales and about leading with passion. And he is now the CEO and founder of C-Suite for Christ, which is an organization very important to me. You got to check this conversation out. It is super cool and a little bit different than our normal insurance focused conversation, but it's still very, very cool. This one is sponsored by Smart Choice, the fastest growing agency network, hands down, with over 10,000 agencies across the country and $11 billion in premium. That's with a big old B. That's a lot of influence with carriers. They love working with Smart Choice. You will too. Reach out. Go to smartchoiceagents.com. Also, go to usecanopy.com/Heath. Get a demo for not only the one-click solution to getting deck pages that you need, but also loss runs, also driver's list. Also, go check them out for the entire intake process with all kinds of forms and cool things that you can white label to your agency, customize colors and whatnot to just be a part of your amazing customer experience. Go to usecanopy.com/Heath and check it out. Use Canopy is amazing, or Canopy Connect, is amazing. Guys, also go to oldschoolmarketing.com for your marketing needs. Rusty and his team are doing a killer job. It's OLDE schoolmarketing.com. Check it out. I'm going to move out of the way and let you check out this wonderful conversation with my main man, Paul Neuberger. My man, Paul. What's going on, brother?
Well, it's good to see you, Heath. How are you doing today, bud?
I'm excited to have you on the show. And we met, I guess, several months ago, and I'm just excited to have you on the show, man.
Well, the feeling is mutual. I try to do as many podcasts and shows as I can, and somebody had once asked me, Paul, how do you know when you've made it in life? And I said, well, when you appear on Heath's program, you know you made it. So it's a big day for me today.
Oh, that's hilarious. No, I appreciate you saying that, man. But that's really cool. I've heard so many good things, and obviously I've paid attention. I've been watching some of your podcast stuff and seeing some of the stuff you do. Like you even have like a TV program and stuff. That's pretty cool, man. So. Talk to me real quick. If we could take a walk down memory lane real quick and let the audience know a little bit about who Paul Neuberger is. Tell me just quickly, like how you got to where you are today. If you want to give me, a couple minutes on that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you would have told me 10 years ago I'd be doing what I'm doing today in all facets, I probably would have accused you of huffing glue in a poorly ventilated room. This was just not on my bingo card, to say the least. I'm like most people. I've gone through a bunch of different seasons. I went to school to be an orthopedic surgeon. I ended up studying marine biology. When I graduated, I thought I was going to either go to, like I said, marine biology school, or maybe go back to medicine in the short time. In the short term, I said, well, I need something to do to pay the bills, so I became a student fundraiser for my alma mater. I thought that was just going to be a short-term job. Turned out I was really, really good at it. I had a lot of fun. That sparked a 10-year career in higher education fundraising. When I was about ready to hopefully start a path to become a college president, my father-in-law died very suddenly and unexpectedly on his 60th birthday. He left my mother-in-law in a bad financial position. I blame myself, so I spent a couple of years as a financial advisor. And it was really right around that time, that was the first commission-only job I ever had. I've always been good at cold calling. I've always been good at sales, but now my life depends on it. So how do I become excellent at it? So I came up with my own methodologies. It took a while. I like to think I've solved cold calling forever. That started about a 15-year career that continues to this day, is being a best-selling author for cold calling, working with some of the most prominent organizations on the planet. And then the last wrinkle was, as I was continuing this rise in the sales training world, I just have always been outspoken about my faith. My faith is very important to me. And as I started to share more about my faith, I grew a larger following. We started to get together on a regular basis. And then that started the birth of C-Suite for Christ, which is now an international movement with 3,400 business executives. We're up to 24 physical chapters. So that's kind of the long, twisted tale of how I got here, and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world.
Bro, you are speaking so many of my love languages. It's amazing when you're talking, cold calling. And that's one of the things that I've spoken on stages about and consulted with insurance agencies across the country about, and in the whole cold calling situation. And I feel like it's even a lost art these days of cold calling. And I think it's funny for me when I talk to insurance producers and I talk about things that help set them apart. Nowadays I feel like cold calling is something that could set an insurance agent or any kind of sales professional apart because people just aren't doing it these days.
Well, even to take that one step further, Heath, uh, as I was kind of sharing with you my trajectory and some of the places that I've gone, I had a brief stop for about 8 months or so. I was the I was the advancement director for a Catholic high school in Wisconsin called Mesmer Catholic Schools. It's about 98% black. I think like whatever it is, 70% of their students come from broken families, single parents, grandparents are raising them, dad's in jail, whatever it is. Yet they have an 89% graduation rate. It's like the model of school systems like that all across the country. And one of the things as I was diving a little bit deeper into the whole Mesmer way, the Mesmer model, is I learned that the students that came there, in order to graduate, they had to take 4 years of swimming. I thought that was the stupidest thing in the world. I don't mind saying that. I'm like 4 years of swimming. Like I get math, I get reading, I get those kind of things, but 4 years of swimming makes no sense. Can you please explain that to me? And the administration went on to say, well, yeah, because many of these kids, by the time they come to us here at high school for ninth grade, many of them haven't even seen a body of water just because they come from broken homes and non-traditional households. And accordingly, if they haven't seen a body of water, many of these kids have never learned to swim. If God is going to be giving them to us, if God is going to be entrusting them, we don't just want them to graduate. We want to give them life skills. So they mandate that these kids have 4 years of swimming because they want to give them this life skill. Cold calling is the exact same way. Right now, somebody could say, "Well, I don't need to cold call. My job doesn't require that." That may be, but imagine being able to pick up the phone and get in front of who you want, when you want, for whatever reason you want. At some point, that's going to be a valuable commodity. At some point, that's going to be a valuable skill. And if you can't communicate, if you can't pique curiosity, if you can't generate interest, if you can't get somebody in a short amount of time to say, sure, I'll talk to you, your competition, regardless of what it is going to be in the fast lane. It is a life skill. Every single person on earth should at least have a basic knowledge of cold calling.
Yeah, dude, I completely agree. And it's funny when I came up in the insurance industry as second generation. My father's been selling insurance for 60 years, and the audience has heard me say that 1,000 times. But my my father, taught me, going door to door. He would just, drop me off an industrial park or drop me off somewhere and just say, go call on people. And, I grew up with the notion of cold calling meant like getting out of the car, knocking on doors. Now, as I've gotten further into my career in PNC insurance, it's now, drop ins. But for me, cold calling wasn't on the phone. Cold calling wasn't just, pick up the phone and dial in for dollars. It was like stepping out of the car, getting in front of someone face to face and doing what you're talking about, and to me, I think again, that's a life skill or a skill that any salesperson, or anybody in general, should have. And I think for me, I'd love to hear you've made a bold statement of like you feel like you've solved that challenge, or like you've come to a good place in that.
Yeah, there's a couple of different things. And again, Heath, I know you can appreciate without giving out all my proprietary information. But since it's you and I love you, I'll share some, I think, some basic tenets. There's a couple of things. In all of the cold call training that we do, either on an individual basis or in a group basis, we always spend the first 90 minutes to 2 hours talking about quote unquote the boring stuff. Everybody wants to be the Gordon Gekko, the Wolf of Wall Street, boiler
Yeah.
room, just really charismatic. The war on cold calling is won or lost long before you get to that point. And we have to build a firm foundation upon which to stand. And that is, for me, cold call psychology and cold call philosophy. So, three main tenets. And then, if you've got any follow ups, let me know. But the three main tenets for me from a philosophical standpoint: number one, people buy people first, not companies. And I guarantee you, everybody gets that. Like you, I'm an international keynote speaker. I travel the country giving speeches. And I'll often do that. So if I'm in on a stage and there's 1,000 people in the room, I'll just ask. More often than not, I know it's not uniform, but more often than not, do people buy people first or do people buy companies first? If there's 1,000 people, 985 hands are going up for people buy people first. People innately get that. But when you listen to their script, they're not selling themselves as human beings first. They're selling
Yep.
their company first, their
Yep.
product first, their professional value add first. That's a huge disconnect. You just said people by people, yet you're leading with the product. Hold on a minute. I don't even know you yet. No, I got a guy, or no, I'm not interested. So we specialize in helping people sell themselves
Sure.
first on a call. Number two, I believe that people are emotional buyers, not logical buyers. People do use logic to justify an emotional purchase. So if this is not in the person's best interest, they're not going to say yes to it. So that's obviously got
Right.
to be there. But too many times in the cold call, we're talking about stats and numbers and
Yep.
basic facts and all that kind of logic, 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 logic. Nobody does anything because logically it makes sense. Logically, we should go to the doctor every month, but we don't. Logically, we should save X amount of money every single month and put it towards savings, but we don't because we're emotional buyers. Logically, we should all eat like bunny rabbits, but we don't because we're driven by emotion. So, what I do is I teach my clients how to connect with people at a deep emotive level first, and then logically they're going to
Yeah.
be more inclined to buy. The last thing I'll say, I'll keep it quick. Number three, it's all about differentiation. A lot of people are just, I want to get through the call, I want to say what we're about, and that's it. And they don't really stop to think, gosh, do I sound like every other insurance agent on the planet right now? Gosh, am I separating my organization and the way
Yeah.
that we help people from all of humanity? Usually it's not. But if you can do those three things, Heath, people by people, sell at an emotional level, and come up with your unique differentiator before you pick up the phone, you're going to be booking more appointments than you've ever dreamed.
100%. And I think, again, I'm a huge relationship guy, and I'm a huge, person who likes to focus on that. And again, I would even add, to that, whether you incorporate in one of those other three of, incorporating the challenges that they deal with, and then how you're doing that. I come in from there, how you challenge or how you solve that challenge. And again, whether you make that deeply personal or, selling that emotion, any of those three things you talked about, I think you're right on there. And I'm a firm believer in that relationship first. And I love that you brought that up as part of that, because again, no matter how much technology, how much, our world's evolving into so many other things, I think it all still has to stem back to that relationship. And I think everything that we do still has to build back to that.
Yeah, one of the analogies that I use, and it's a very simple, straightforward analogy, but it's like if you're a farmer and you're planting some crops, you plant the seed, it starts to grow, you got the sprout that's coming out of the dirt, and then right about that time when it's still a real juvenile plant, you get a rainstorm, you get the heavy winds and the rains and everything else. It's not going to take much to uproot that plant because it's got a very shallow root system. However, if in this case, whether it's a corn stalk or a tree, whatever else, let's just say it's a tree, that thing grows and grows. The root system goes really deep. I mean, unless it's like a Cat 5 tornado or hurricane, that big tree is going to stay there because it's got a very firm root system. That's the difference between transactional selling and relational selling. And as a society, we have a very low attention span. We want instant everything. You see Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and Tim Cook and whoever else, and you're thinking, I want to be that, but you're not willing to put in the work. You're not willing to grind. You're not willing to put in the dues and the sweat equity to get to that. And you just want, well, I'm going to call this guy now and sell $1 billion worth of stuff, whatever it is. If any sale that is made on cost will be lost on cost next year. Any sale that is made on convenience this year will be lost on convenience next year. You want to get to that point where you've connected at that deep emotional level. They know you, they like you, they trust you, and that can happen fairly quickly. I mean, we're not talking about years. We're talking about a couple of conversations where you can start doing that. Now you got that deep root system. When your competition calls in the next couple of weeks, thanks, but I got a guy. Another organization, hey, we got a cheaper rate for you. You may be, but I got a guy. It has to be relational selling, not transactional selling. And I think one of the best places to start that is the cold call.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I love, to hear that as part of your journey. And also, you and I both, share in the fact that we have a strong faith and again, both being involved in the C-suite for Christ. I would love to hear from your perspective and where you've gone in your life as far as, that's not always the easiest thing, when you're out in sales and you're out in, the world every day that we live in, to stay strong in that, in that faith sometimes. And, to be able to navigate, keeping your faith in your business there, and bring those together without being offensive, so to speak, or about being a quote Bible thumper or whatever that might be. What has that been like for you, and how have you been able to navigate that?
Yeah, well, I mean, until I really got comfortable, it was hard to navigate. And my advice for your audience is really going to be this: what audience do you play for? And you've got to, whoever you answer, first of all, you should be very introspective about that, but that should dictate your behavior. That should dictate your actions. That should dictate the way that you conduct yourself in your businesses. I mean, Michael Jordan once famously said, and I know, Michael Jordan is political, but for the most part, he stayed out of it. He says, well, Democrats and Republicans both buy Nikes. At the end of the day, I think that's a cop-out. I really do. That shows, in my humble opinion, he's the greatest athlete that's ever lived. But that shows that he's more interested, in my opinion, in making money than taking a stand. This is not to say that athletes or politicians should all take a kind of a bold stand. But if you're in that gray area, well, I got my beliefs, but I'm going to keep it out of it because I want to make money. I think you're doing it for the wrong reasons. One of my life verses is Galatians chapter 1, verse 10. It says this: am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. And it's my prayer that hits your audience like a ton of bricks. If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. I used to have a lot of anxiety, which led to depression. For a brief season of my life, I was suicidal because I was trying to please everybody. I was trying to please my wife. I was trying to please my parents. I was trying to please my boss. I was trying to please my customers. And you start being all things to all people, and your identity gets all swept up in that. Right now, I made the conscious decision several years ago, right around the time we created the C-Suite for Christ movement. I play for an audience of one. My audience is Jesus Christ. If Heath doesn't like it, that's Heath's problem. If I lose business because of it, oh well. Because at the end of the day, when God calls me home and I look Him face to face and He says, did you tell the world about me? Did you make disciples of all nations? What did you do with the people I brought into your life? And I say, well, sorry, Jesus, I didn't take advantage of that opportunity because I didn't want to end up in Facebook jail, or I didn't want to miss out on writing that short-term life insurance policy. That's not going to be a satisfactory answer, so I'm not going to live my life that way.
The Chosen, I don't know if you've seen the Chosen franchise, but they had season 5. They broke it up into 3 different sections. We went and watched the first 2 sections of it, and the third one will release in a couple of days, I think. And I don't know if you saw it or not yet. They're showing him, preaching right outside the temple, and and he's doing the thing, and he's preaching, and they stop him, and the Sadducees, the Pharisees, all the people there, and they stop and they talk to him, and they're trying to trap him into saying the wrong thing, and they ask him about paying taxes to Caesar, and they ask him about paying taxes. And he, obviously, if you've read the Bible, the answers here, but, they're trying to get him to say, something against Caesar. And he says, yeah. And the famous verse, render to what is Caesar, what is Caesar's, and to God, what is God's. And I try to, relay that in my own life, within my own business world, my own podcasting, speaking, anything that I do, that, I still think that we go, we pay God what is God's, but then we also lean into your industry, lean into your sales, lean into the organization you work with, and make a balance that, but putting Christ first in that same way. And it was a powerful moment in the movie, but also a powerful moment in my own life to think about that. And no matter what I'm doing, in whatever industry I'm speaking to, or whatever I'm doing within the insurance industry, I still owe to what is Christ.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And again, at the end of the day, we are in this world, but we are not of this world. And because we're in this world, it is so easy to get swept up in the things of this world. And that's why we need a ministry like C-Suite for Christ. That's why we need to have conversations like this, because it's a constant level set, a constant reminder. Hey, the promotion you're chasing, at the end of the day, that's not what life's about. The money that you're trying to make, at the end of the day, that's not what life's about. I mean, one of the other verses that really kind of haunts me to some degree in a good way, because it's like a cold splash of water. It forces me to make sure that I'm doing what God wants me to do. I know you're familiar with this, Heath. Matthew chapter 7, verses 13 through 14. Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy. That leads to destruction. And those who enter by it are many. For the gate is narrow and the way is hard. That leads to life. And those who find it are few. The reason that this one haunts me to some degree is it says a lot of people are going to hell and few people are going to heaven. And in the final analysis, at the end of the day, what are we spending our time for? Are we spending our time chasing clients, making money, increasing our title, collecting things? Well, congratulations, you just found the wide road. If
Right.
that's your primary reason in life. Or, I mean, there's nothing wrong with working hard and providing for your family. Of course, I'm not saying that. But if that becomes your God, if that becomes the reason for existing, you're totally missing the boat. For us, it's got to be about, okay, well, what does God want me to do? God doesn't need me to be rich. God doesn't need me to be successful necessarily for success's sake. Are we bringing people to Him? Are we making Him known? Are we developing an intimate relationship with Him? Are we surrendering our God-given talents and abilities and letting Him use us for our purposes? And if the answer is yes to those things, great. I think we just might find that narrow gate. Nothing else at the end of the day. How much money you made versus where you spend eternity, it's not even a question, in my opinion.
Yeah, and one of the things that I also wanted to get into with you is as you talk to C-suite executives and you talk to business owners, again, it's C-suite for Christ, but you're obviously talking to business owners, and you have obviously the Christian aspect. If you go to a meeting for C-suite for Christ, you're going to see a lot of biblical elements, but you're going to see a room full of insurance professionals, real estate professionals, business owners, whatever it might be. What are some of the challenges that you see most common?
I think there's a lot, but I would say one of the first things that I hear the most, one of the first things that comes to my mind is executives are some of the most unhealthy people I've ever met. It's not even close. I mean, they're good people. They're very talented. I mean, immensely talented, but extremely unhealthy. They maybe don't work out as much. They're not sleeping. They're putting on these long hours. They're eating Wendy's or whatever else they can when they can grab a bite. Because they're so busy, they're not prioritizing their faith as much as they want. So their soul is in the bad spot. They're carrying all this stress. So emotionally, they're facing a lot of challenges. Their interpersonal relationships aren't very good. The divorce rate for top executives, I've seen numbers as high as in the 70s. These people are just not healthy. And it's because a lot of these people have bought into the lies of the world. You have to do it all yourself. You have to fill up your calendar. There can be no white space. You'll get plenty of sleep when you're dead. Don't worry. You don't ask for help because that's a sign of weakness. Those are things that are killing our executives. Our executives are some of the most unhappy people I've ever met, some of the most stressed and unhealthy people I've ever met. So rather than addressing the symptom, let's address the root cause. If you're familiar with mowing your lawn, when you start going from, you start getting into the spring to summer months, your grass is turning green. There's those pesky dandelions. They're all over the place until you can get your lawn sprayed.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes people say, well, I don't want to wait. I'm just going to go and I'm going to start picking dandelions. That's fine. You could spend 3 hours picking them up. 24 hours come by, they're all there again.
Yep.
Because you pulled them up, but you didn't pull out the root. And that weed is going to continue to come back until you get the root out of the ground. And for us, it's not, well, you need counseling or you need to read a book or you need to take a vacation. All that is pulling the dandelion out of the grass. We believe it all starts with your relationship with Christ. It all starts with the state of your soul. Our favorite question at C-Suite for Christ is, how is your soul today? And we give these executives a place to lay it all down at the foot of the cross, to be vulnerable. There's, people cry usually at every session because they're carrying so much weight. If you happen to network, great. If you happen to learn something, great. But it gives them that oasis to lay it all down. And I think the more we can give executives the opportunity to do that, the healthier they're going to start to become.
Yeah. And, you bring up something that, really rings true with me and my audience, I think, is, we wear that busyness, so to speak, as a badge of honor. And it's like, if your calendar's not full, that white space is not full, then, I think you're right. There's too many of us that try, to fill that calendar or try to fill that void or try to do it all ourselves. And,
Well, and you're hitting on one of my favorite things to talk about. You mentioned my our TV programs. I've got three of them. They're all behind the Right Now Media paywall. I do a lot of work with Right Now Media. They're one of the largest Christian media
Yeah,
organizations on the planet. And recently, they had me do a webinar. About 1,000 people were there. It was really, really a cool experience. And it all had to do with the difference between busy and productive. There's a huge difference, and you're right. We get way
100%.
too caught up in busy. I don't know if you know this or your audience knows this. Busy is an acronym. It stands for buried under Satan's yoke. If Satan cannot
Nice.
sever our relationship with Christ, he's going to do the next best thing, which is just going to make us insanely busy. Now we're too busy to build an intimate relationship with Jesus Christ. We're too busy to go to C-suite for Christ. We're too busy to go to that small group Bible study. He starts hurting our relationship with Jesus. It becomes his playground now. It has everything to do with productive. I believe, and this sounds braggadocious, but because I've obsessed about this for so long, I believe I can do more in 3 hours than some people can in 3 days. And if I'm able to measure my success, not based on how full my calendar is or how much stuff I'm doing, but did I accomplish the four big things that I need to accomplish this week? Did I achieve some of the goals and objectives that I've set for myself? And if I can look in the mirror and say, yes, I did. All right, now I'm going to take my wife out take my wife out to lunch. I'm going to go to bed
Yeah.
early. I'm going to watch a movie because we need that rest in our lives. And as long as you're being productive, it does feel weird, Heath, maybe stopping your workday at noon to treat yourself because you hit all your goals. But that's exactly what God wants us to do. And if you're being productive, then the more power to you.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I love the saying that, going back to what you had mentioned earlier, if Satan can't destroy you, he'll distract you. And we get distracted by that busyness. We get distracted by, I need my pipeline to be full. I need a full calendar of meetings. I need. And we think that we have to check all these boxes in order to be successful. For you, like, where do you see C-suite for Christ? It's still fairly a newer kind of thing still. Where do you see the next 5 or 10 years? Where do you see the goals for its growth?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer it in two different ways. I'm going to answer with the most important motivation first. It's our stated mission at C-Suite for Christ to cover the world in
Yeah.
Christ. That is 100% totally rooted in the Great Commission. When Jesus ascended into heaven, he told his followers to go into the world and make disciples of all nations. Not only if they felt like it, not only if they had nothing better to do. It ain't the great suggestion. It ain't the great recommendation. We don't have a choice in the matter. Far too many people today treat the Great Commission as a luxury. Nah, I'm uncomfortable,
Yep.
so I'm not going to do it, or I should. That person, I don't want to risk offending them. Dude, you do not have a choice. God told us, Jesus told us that we have to go into the world and make disciples. So one of the goals that I have, whenever it is, be it 5 years, 10 years, whatever. I mean, if you look at some of these statistics when it comes to religion or Christianity in the state of our country, it's pretty depressing. Church attendance going down, religious affiliation going down, that type of thing. I'd kind of like it, again, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, I'd like there to be like this bit of an inflection point. And after 30 years of going down, it starts ticking up. And somebody says, what happened that year? And the answer is, well, C Suite for Christ happened. C Suite for Christ was able to mobilize executives from every corner of the world to inspire, encourage, empower executives to start boldly and unapologetically living for Christ, to start bringing Christ into their workplace and discipling employees, discipling clients, discipling vendors. Because it just takes a spark to start a massive wildfire, and C Suite for Christ wants to be that spark. So on the qualitative side, I'd say that. On the quantitative side, because we've grown so rapidly, I mean, there's no reason why we can't have thousands of chapters all across the country. There's no reason why we can't have millions of dues paying members, because everybody needs this. Everybody, for the most part, wants this. So how do we get it to the masses as quickly as possible? Last thing I'll say, this is why we call it the C-Suite for Christ movement, as opposed to the C-Suite for Christ ministry. It's not about what happens inside these four walls. It's we're going to witness to you, we're going to encourage you, we're going to pray for you. Now take what you've learned and go and touch as many lives for Christ as you possibly can.
Yeah, I love that. And you know, I would love if you could share with the audience like a general, I guess, because each state probably has their own, contact and whatnot. But in general, if someone wanted to get involved with C-suite, if someone listening right now, is there a general broad way they can do that, and then they could dive into their local chapters?
Yeah, for sure. So the best advice that I could give would be to go to the home office website. It's very simple. It's so the letter C, suite, SUITEFOR Christ.com. That is the central repository for all that information. C-suite for Christ.com. And as you said, Heath, there's something for everybody. Now, to become a member, you have to be in a position of executive decision-making authority. There are weekly ministry offerings that are available to everybody. We've got educational programs that are available to everybody. We've got nationwide events that everybody can attend to. We've got 3 television shows, a radio show. We're on Sirius XM. We've got a YouTube channel where we're uploading at least 5 videos every single day. So we produce a lot of content designed to make you who God wants you to be. So my motto is, whatever you do, do something, because we're better together, we're stronger together, and we're going to cover this world in Christ together.
I appreciate you, joining me today. I appreciate you being a part of the program. I'm so glad that I was able to meet you in Little Rock several months back, and I appreciate your heart, not only for salespeople, but also for Christ and for the C-suite executives of the world. And so thank you for all that you're doing. Someone wanted to keep up with you and follow you. Obviously, you mentioned right now, but is there any other way they might be able to connect with you?
Yeah, I'd say the big 3 things. So I'll go back again to that website, csuiteforchrist.com. Everything is on there, including my contact information on how to get a hold of me. Number 2, I'm on a lot of social media platforms. The one I spend the majority of my time on is LinkedIn. So just look me up, Paul M. Neuberger. And then, like I said, I'm a prolific content creator. So for videos and other information about us, I'd also go to our YouTube channel. So just go to YouTube and just look up C-suite for Christ. But Heath, before we go, I want to echo what you said about me back to you. I mean, if our mission is to cover the world in Christ, which it certainly is, we can't do it alone. We need a lot of other people, individuals, organizations that are being bold and unapologetic, telling the world not who they are, but whose they are. And
Amen.
you're doing a great work on your podcast and your day-to-day interactions with people. So it's an honor to be on your show. Keep up the good work, and it's a blessing to be in this foxhole with you, sir.
Dude, thank you so much. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'm sure I'll talk to you real soon.
All right, brother.
Have a good one, man.
You too. See ya.
See ya.